morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this pale blue dot that we all live on. My name is Adam-Antium, you are the audience, and you're listening to AAU TZM Podcast. I'd like to thank everyone out there who's listening to actually time for listening to my rambling voice. Just the usual announcement for those of you listening to this on YouTube right now. My podcasts also exist on talkshoe.com. Down below in the video description you'll find the link there. You can listen to and download the full MP3 files for free. So just for those of you who don't want to have to listen to them in 30-minute parts on YouTube, you can do that there. Also the usual plug is for TZM Defined, or the Zeitgeist Movement Defined. This is basically the canonical text, as it were, to find out exactly what it is that the Zeitgeist Movement actually advocates. It's quite an expansive book, depending on how much you actually read. But if you really want the inside track on exactly what the train of thought actually is that the Zeitgeist Movement advocates, then you can find that there. If you go to www.thezeitgeistmovement.com/orientation, you'll be able to find the details for how to get hold of it. You can either, I think, buy it from Amazon.com or Lulu.com, and but you can also download a PDF of it for free. That is if you want a PDF version of it. The only other announcement before the sponsors is for the short film that I'm soon to be completing, called Chapter 3 Threshold. I know it's been quite a while since I started this project, and it's been a long task to get it finished. It's just just like I said last time, the only thing that's left is the writing of the actual song that will appear in the film itself. So it's just a matter of sorting that out and getting that written so it can be sent off to the other musicians that I've got on board to sort that out, make it much better, and actually get it to me so I can just slide it back in the film and then upload that to YouTube. So that will be done probably in early in the new year by now, because it's going to have to take me a while to get through this. But there's that. It is my unfortunate task to tell you that Tackle is now no longer our sponsor, since it no longer exists. I guess what happened was that they became a victim of their own service by an anti-tackle smear campaign. I guess the use of their product got a lot of people's backs up, and they decided to fight fire with fire. But hey ho, it's all a learning experience. So this podcast is brought to you by Quote Minecraft, a piece of software that combines a gaming experience with video editing. Essentially, how it works is the gameplay represents the parts of a video you wish to remove or wish to keep in terms of how you want the finished edit to look like. One of the program's recent successes was a video that went viral on social networks that played a short clip of one of Barack Obama's speeches, and all of a sudden people were claiming that Obama was actually saying that America needs to be enslaved because we can't look after ourselves, even though when you look at the actual video, he wasn't talking about America at all. He was talking about other countries' attitudes about America. But hence the title, Quote Minecraft. So for all your video editing needs that can be tailor-made to your own agenda, you can find it all for a low price on www.quoteminecraftforyou.com. Additionally, if you click on the troll icon at the top left and enter the code name SUCKER, you will get 25% off. So get crafting. Propaganda will not write itself. This podcast is also brought to you by Russell Brand. Yep, he actually sends me envelopes of cash in wet plastic bags through the letterbox, which I have to dry on the radiator, but why bite the hand that feeds, eh? He's agreed to co-fund this podcast until he can spare at least 10 minutes on the show to talk with me about science and sustainability. So, cheers, Russell. So, ladies and gents, be sure to message, tweet, email, smoke signal, whatever you got to do, to thank Russell for sponsoring this show. The more we thank him, the more likely he will be to actually come on to the show to talk to us. And I've actually heard from some inside sources that Russell is actually aware of the direction of a natural or resource-based economy and aware of the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement. But he said that he wouldn't be willing to come out and speak directly about these kind of things in direct advocation until he's fully in understanding about them. So come on, Russell, hurry up with your research. This podcast is also brought to you by Green Party candidate Caroline Lucas. It's weird. When I started this podcast over 4 years ago, I never thought that I would receive political funding. But it's true. I receive sporadic funds from her via carrier pigeon. I say sporadic because some of the payments don't actually make it to me. I mean, there's a guy who lives a couple of doors down from me, and I don't think his brain is firing on all cylinders because he just loves shooting things. And to make matters worse, he suffers a phobia of pigeons. So as they fly over his garden, he shoots them down, and I can sometimes never recover the corpse to get my money. But Caroline is aware of this, and she sends me larger sums, and sometimes the pigeon is wearing, Kevlar, a little itty-bitty Kevlar vest. It's pretty cool. But that said, she's agreed to fund this podcast until she can spare at least 10 minutes to talk about science and sustainability when applied to society and our environment. So, ladies and gents, be sure to message, tweet, email, smoke signal, whatever you got to do to thank Caroline for sponsoring this show. The more we thank her, the more likely she will be to actually come on to talk to us. And just the last sponsor, this podcast is also brought to you by Sir Patrick Stewart. Oh yes, it's very, very true, people. Ever since someone on YouTube made a video about Captain Picard promoting a resource-based economy, I think it was called, Mr. Sir Stewart has been keenly interested in the work and that we've been doing, and in fact, he's said that to me quite a few times. Looking over the Venus Project reminded him of the wonderful vision of Gene Roddenberry himself. So, off his own back, he decided to start beaming me money. I think he's using a prototype of the Replicator 3D printer. Because what he sends me doesn't actually always materialize in UK currency, and sometimes it materializes halfway inside different walls in my house. But I'm working on an accurate schematic for my building, so to send that to him, so they can always appear on my bedside cupboard. But that said, he's agreed to fund this podcast until he can spare at least 10 minutes to talk about science and sustainability when applied to society and our environment. So, ladies and gents, be sure to message, tweet, text, email, smoke signal, whatever you got to do to thank Sir Stewart for sponsoring this show. The more we thank him, the more likely he will be to actually come on to talk to us. And, usually I would actually gain more sponsors for each month. But one of the things that I didn't realize before is that all I needed to achieve for the time being was what's known as the triad of sponsorship. It's basically, just very much like the 3 points of a pyramid. We in the Zeitgeist movement are very, very fond of, Masonic, artwork and Masonic symbols and, all those kinds of concepts. So, because for a fact that we are part of the Illuminati, even though we have nowhere near their funding. But anyway, the triad of sponsorship is now complete, and so once one has to fall out, another one has to take its place. So that's really the situation that I've got now. So, but anyway, that's the sponsorship situation, all the announcements out of the way. As the title suggests of this podcast, you will know that Douglas Mallette, former systems engineer for the US Space Shuttle program and CEO of Cybernated Farm Systems, is here to speak to us. So I will hand the floor over to Doug and say hello.
Hello. That is an amazing list of sponsors you have going on there. I'm quite impressed. Very good stuff right there. I look forward to the day when they actually show up and have conversations. That'd be fantastic. Thank you for having me on the show again. I really do appreciate it. What do you want to chat about?
Well, I mean, I was thinking since it's been quite a while since you were on, and since you've been up to quite a lot since then, I just thought you'd want to give the audience a good sort of like catch up on what sort of things you've been doing since we last spoke.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the push to get CFS funded is a continuing process. It basically will never stop until we actually get what we need to move forward. But in the meantime, it's all about the networking and building up the relationships that will help CFS move forward once we are funded. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing a little bit, but effectively, we're trying to still get the prototype funded through either traditional funding or maybe even crowdfunding, although I've tried the crowdfunding route before and it doesn't seem to be as effective as I would like. You have thousands and thousands of supporters and, it wouldn't actually take that much to really launch us, but, everybody is, almost everybody is feeling the financial pinch of life right now, and so it's difficult. However, with that said, we have ideas that are in work, and we're trying to figure out the best way to tackle a crowdfunding option. Maybe thinking of doing something like T-shirt and coffee mug campaign, because then people could at least get some, as I say, merchandising, how the real money from the movie is made, as Mel Brooks would say from Spaceballs. So thinking of maybe going down that route so then people can wear CFS T-shirts or have CFS coffee mugs and at least have something that can show their support, because, most of the time what we've done is it's the crowdfunding I've done has been to help get me to conferences and events that are important for the development of CFS, and a lot of people understand that, and we just barely get enough money to pay for the airplane ticket and a couple of nights at a hotel, or somebody, a good connection, fan of what we're doing, is like a diamond level member at a hotel chain because of his job, and so he has a whole and helps out getting me hooked up with free hotel. So it's like a big combination of what people can assist with their couch surfing. If that's an option, I definitely take it, and stuff like that, because I find people's hospitality in their home to be so much better than even the greatest 5-star hotel in many cases. So just because you're around friends and you can chat and stuff like that. So anyway, sorry, that was a slight tangent.
That's fine.
But
sorry. Just for the audience who aren't aware of what Cybernative Farm Systems is, could you just give a quick rundown of exactly what CFS is and what it's planning to do?
Good point. Yes, I wasn't thinking about new listeners. Sorry about that. All right. So Cybernative Farm Systems is a company that I started to reflect a design that I created right towards the end of the space shuttle program, when we knew that the space shuttle was ending, and we all had to figure out now what we were going to be when we grew up, because really we were just like a bunch of kids playing with spaceships, working in that building, working with that system, very expensive spaceship, but still. And so we had to figure out what we were going to do. And it ended up coming to pass through sequences of events like the Haitian earthquake. I was looking at the disaster relief progress or lack of progress in some cases. And I designed an off-grid aquaponic greenhouse, a smart off-grid aquaponic greenhouse. So basically it's a highly computer-controlled aquaponic greenhouse system that is much more efficient and productive than traditional agriculture, but it occupies a much smaller footprint, and it is grid independent in that it has solar and wind power, so it collects its own energy, it collects its own water through various means, and over time we have evolved the concept to include a lot more than just that. It's definitely more than just a greenhouse, but it's also highly computer controlled. Say 80+% of the building is automated and self-regulates and self-manages itself, which makes it easier for the operators to deal with that much food being grown in such a small space. So it's a major assistant to the operators of the building. And the people who would operate the building only have to do a little bit to help make it function or do what the computer system asks them to do and educates them on how and why they're doing stuff. So I designed this, and then, of course, I'm not an aquaponics specialist, so I had to do a lot of research on what it really was. In a nutshell, aquaponics is using fish tanks and fish waste that dirties the water. Use that dirty water to feed plants, and that cleans the water, and then the clean water goes right back into the fish tank. That's a very simple way of putting it. People, you can Google, anyone can Google aquaponics and learn more about it. There's plenty of literature on it. It's becoming much more popular, especially given in a climate-controlled building like a greenhouse, like what we are doing. It helps combat the climate change issues, soil erosion issues, being able to grow in arid wasteland kinds of places. This can do that. So I designed this system, but I knew right off the bat that I probably missed a few things. And because I am humble enough to recognize my own limitations, I brought on board a team of electrical engineer, computer scientist, an aquaponics specialist who has a whole system in his own backyard that he uses for a private small company that he has, where he helps put in plants and whatnot around water bodies that are at neighborhoods and apartment complexes. You see those little retention ponds, and sometimes they have reeds and foliage growing out of the water. Well, he helps provide those kinds of systems to help clean the water too. So it's kind of an environmental aspect to it. So I brought this team together, and we hashed it out, and we've gotten down to a final design concept that we like, that we want to use, and that's what we're trying to get the funding to do now. We've done all of this voluntarily up until this point. Now we're at the basically where the real stuff starts, where we have to build the demo model, the prototype of this building, and get operational data. How fast do the plants really grow? I mean, you can do calculations all you want, and that's fantastic. But where the rubber meets the road is when you actually test and get operational parameters of all the details of how this thing really operates. How much electricity are we really generating over 6 months? So you have to do a long study, a timescale thing. So that's where we are right now. We're trying to get the funding for that. When it comes to a tech startup, most tech companies require millions and millions of dollars to get launched, to move to the next level. We need only about $600,000, and we can do everything that we need to do for a 2-year prototype development cycle. And so we're really wicked cheap. Because we have a lot of connections, because we're doing this in such a trying to streamline the way, we're not blowing a lot of money on useless nonsense. I don't have to hire 50 people where there's only going to be 4 of us. We're all not trying to pay ourselves $100,000 a year to do this. We're lowballing our quote-unquote salaries as much as possible so that it can still be a full-time job, but so that we make the budget smaller. Because what's more important is getting the prototype done, and that leads me into the next part. Now that people kind of know what CFS is and what we're doing, recently I was invited by the Secretary General of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization based out of Rome, because of various connections that I have to the UN in lectures and conferences and people that I've met in the past. This email kind of quote-unquote landed on my doorstep, inviting me to Rome to a food security conference that was happening right around World Food Day. And I, of course, jumped on that invitation with a significant amount of fervor. I did a crowdfunding campaign. I did a crowdfunding campaign to help make that happen. I was already going to Italy anyway. A couple of months previous, I was invited to speak at a conference in near Florence, Italy, and so and it happens to be that the UNFAO conference was only happening about 4 days before the other conference. So I was already going there, so it didn't cost that much to change the plane ticket and make some adjustments to the itinerary that I already had. So it ended up working out great. And I'm glad that it did. I got into the belly of the beast. It's kind of funny how you were talking about how Ziggies, the people who follow the Zeitgeist movement or whatever, I affectionately call them Ziggies. Ziggies really go crazy about some of them. These are the ones that I really don't associate with, but some of them go off on the conspiracy theory crap of the United Nations and the New World Order and this Agenda 31,000.45 or I don't know, whatever they come up with. And although there are probably some nefarious people here and there trying to maximize their own self-importance or whatever, in talking and working with these people, a lot of them really just are trying to help, but they're trying to help within the limitations of this system. So, it's like they want to do good, they want to help people, they see that things are broken, but they just don't go far enough. And I don't think that makes these people bad or whatever. I mean, there are some things that come down the pike that you're kind of scratch your head and go, what are you guys thinking? But you could say that about almost any industry. I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's stuff that happens in the Zeitgeist movement that makes me scratch my head and go, what the hell are you guys thinking? So when you get a large enough group of people together, occasionally you're going to get whack jobs that are just going to be like head scratching. What? So I figure, and I've said this many times in the past, that I think it is more realistic and smarter to use the system to change the system. You can rant and rave and scream at it all you want, but it is the dominating force on the planet. So the odds of you fighting the juggernaut like that as a very small, insignificant peon in the wheel, it's kind of an unrealistic whacking your head against the wall. I mean, eventually you might put a crack in the wall, but you're also going to break your skull in the process. And then you're going to have 500 people behind you doing the same thing. I mean, it would take thousands and thousands of you whacking up against the wall. Or if I can just climb the wall, why would I not just climb the wall, get to the other side, and break it down from the inside out? It might be a lot easier. So now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't try to break the wall from the other side. They should do it in realistic, pragmatic ways. There is a place for that. Absolutely. A lot of social change in this world came from beating up against the wall, but it was under a more organized, kind of half within the system, half outside the system, kind of straddling the fence in a way. But my point of view is if I can get into the belly of the beast, if I can get into these places where a lot of people think bad things happen, and meet these people, talk with these people, try to implement better solutions and really start affecting change in a positive way, you will see an erosion process. Things will start to change. And my visiting of Italy and going to the UNFAO in Rome, I was talking to diplomats, heads of state, senior agricultural officials from Asia, from China to Africa, to Nigeria and Africa, all the way down to Argentina. I mean, I was talking and having conversations with high-level officials from all around the world at this conference. And a couple of things that I got out of it is, first, a lot of them don't even know what aquaponics is. That's sad. So I did a lot of education there. And a lot of them don't understand what vertical gardening is. And that's sad. So I gave them education there. So in describing CFS and what we're doing, a lot of eyeballs got really wide. Now, the problem is I don't have a prototype yet. So I don't have a physical object to say, come visit this, walk through this building, take a look at what we're doing. I don't have that yet. But I am in the UNFAO now as a as a formal delegate. Try saying that 5 times fast. Say formal delegate. Anyway, I'm now a formal delegate of the UNFAO Committee on World Food Security via the private sector mechanism. It's funny, the Committee on World Food Security, their acronym is CFS. They actually dumped the W.
Wow.
It should be CWFS, but they call themselves CFS. So it was funny when people were reading my name badge, they're like, you're CFS too. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So it was kind of funny. They're like, did you do that on purpose? I was like, no, I'm just Cybernated Farm Systems. I didn't even know CWFS or CFS existed here at the UN, so that's kind of funny. So that was also a nice icebreaker and conversation starter in some cases. But so by visiting there, I've now made a lot of great connections. So we're really, the push is now to get the physical building built, because once I have that, it will sell itself. I don't have to do a whole lot of sales pitching nonsense. When people can physically see the building, watch what it does, watch the productivity, look at the numbers, see the fish swimming around, see the spinach or tomatoes or whatever we're growing grow, and see how much energy it generates on its own and all that wonderful fun stuff, they're going to want it. And I know they are, because they've already said they are. But they can't formally commit to something because I don't have an object for them to commit to. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am right now, is I've got a lot of interest, high-level players that are interested. I do have the 3 formal letters of interest from Cambodia that we got earlier this year in February when I visited Cambodia. I spoke to the former counselor to the King of Cambodia. He's a high-level official, still a well-recognized and respected gentleman in Cambodia. His name is His Excellency Son Sober. He operates several orphanages around Phnom Penh, which is the capital of Cambodia. They want to get CFS systems in those orphanages for a couple of reasons. Obviously, to feed the kids. 2, the buildings can plug to their retention ponds and have water pollution cleaning system for the retention ponds that they have. And also, to generate a little bit of income, they can sell the extra food, because they're going to grow a lot more food than is needed for those kids. But what it does is provide them an income stream so that they can sell some of that product out to market, generate some income, and improve the orphanage. But in the meantime, the kids that are there at the orphanage will also get an amazing education in solar power, weather, computer control systems, sensors, fish management, agriculture, aquaponics. By running that building, by working that building, by learning how all of it works. You get a kid that starts off at 10 years old, goes in there every once in a while, learns about the building, and it helps operate it as a group with other kids. When they're 16, 17, or if they get adopted or whatever, they now have this kind of foundational knowledge in a 21st century way of growing food. And they can take that now out into the world and do even more. So it's like a snowball effect going down to the avalanche. And so there's that we have a plan for that. So we're geared up and ready to do some amazing things. We just need to get that support, the financial support, to take us to the next level. And that was a long monologue, so go ahead.
Well, I mean, one of the things that, because I tell people about, vertical hydroponic and aquaponic farming like nearly all the time, and because I remember there was one thing you said. I think it was either on the last time you were here, or on another one of your interviews, where you referred to vertical farms as salad factories. And that sort of got me thinking as to if you can like list any off the top of your head, what are really the best or the most optimal foods that can be grown both hydroponically and aquaponically, and which foods can't?
Okay. So I can easily go to the things that are. No, let me say this: you can grow pretty much everything. You really can. There's not much that can't be grown aquaponically. I'll give you an example, or hydroponically. Disney World at Epcot Center, there is a ride that you can take. It's called Living with the Land. Disney World has a major hydroponic and aquaponic operation going on in Epcot. In fact, I posted pictures about it once, I think, on my Facebook page. The food that they grow there, they use in the 2 restaurants that are neighboring to the area. So they service their restaurants with the food from there. They grow watermelons. They grow herbs and spices. They grow apples. They grow bananas. They grow leafy greens. They grow tomatoes, all different varieties of tomatoes. They do agro-science research on how to mitigate disease for certain foods. The day that I was there visiting, there's two rides, quote quote rides. So there's a boat ride you could take that's almost like Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World, right? But instead of seeing a bunch of animatronic things go